Sup guys, it's me Nathan, just popping in to give you my opinion on the BF109z and why I believe it is not a very good addition to the game. It's just a bad precedent. Now, when this was first announced, I saw the community was all over the place with it, but it was generally positive. A lot of German fanboys seemed quite happy with the new shiny, but a few people seem upset about whole historical context and the like. And I decided I was going to let it wait for a little while and just let my opinion ferment and mull it over, sort of like a fine wine or possibly a foul-smelling cheese from the Midlands. And I came to the conclusion that the precedent the BF109z sets is bad for the game in the long run. But before I get into that, I first have to go over what Gaijin's opinion was on vehicles that never flew or were simply paper vehicles. For example, the Panther 2 in-game currently, the King Tiger 105, the Ho 229, the R2Y2, the Ho reproduction. Gaijin's opinion on these vehicles when they were questioned on it in a Q&A about a month and a half ago came to the conclusion that they were going to remove the Panther 2 and the King Tiger 105 in a future update once they found something to fill said role, or maybe when they just felt like it. Because when said vehicles were added to the game, they were added to fill a gap in the tech tree that was left empty. When ground forces were first added, which is when both the Panther 2 and the King Tiger 105 were added to the game, there was basically nothing Germany could have in the time frame they had assigned themselves that could compete with the T-54 and the IS-3. Tanks of that ilk, the low sort of 7.3, 7.7 of the Russian tree, which at this point had been greatly surpassed by the power creep that is now rank 6. And I can agree with the logic behind that. Sometimes you're going to have to, do a little bit of surgery, make a few lenient passes to allow things to operate correctly in said game. For example, the R2Y2s, no matter how much I hate them, we're stuck with. Because the R2Y2s fill a role in the Japanese tree that will never be filled by a historical vehicle, because the Japanese tree completely lacks anything to be filled in. Because during that time period of jet development, Japan was quite literally America's bitch. Which comes to the conclusion that they would only use second-hand American equipment or slightly modified American vehicles, like that new Sabre they added a couple of months back. Because of this, if they wanted to have a bomber/attacker for Japan, they would have to go into the paper vehicles, in which case that is what the R2Y2 is. And as a matter of fact, I despise this, but even though I hate it with a passion, I understand why they did it, and I have to begrudgingly accept it. But they decided quite recently that in this said dev Q&A, that any vehicle added in the future would be added for a necessary reason to fill a gap. And that's where there's a problem with the BF109z, my first problem with it. It doesn't fill a gap. For them, a necessary reason to add a vehicle to the game is to make $30 on a premium. Give Germany a little shiny, dangle it on a string, and next thing you know, just rake in the money like leaves on the lawn. And that's a problem, because it means that, for all we know, next update they could be releasing some fucking Russian vehicle that never fucking existed. Like, a twin My Tandem or some shit. That, for all we know, that could happen next, and it sets a bad precedent for what could be added to the game, as now paper vehicles are now game. At least if they can make $30 on them. Or in the case of ground vehicles in the rank 5, rank 4 range, $50 on them. My main problem with this vehicle, though, comes with the fact that it never flew. For a bit of historical background, the BF109z was a supposed prototype constructed using 2 Friedrich models. Then, later down the line, they made 5 or 6, it was 4 specifications of possible vehicles. None of these specifications existed beyond the supposed half-built prototype made of the Friedrichs, which was the Z0. The one we're getting is the Z1, which appears to be a conglomeration of several of the variants sort of just stuck together. It's missing the 30mm in between, instead you've got a bomb, so you've just got a kind of a weird hodgepodge of bits and pieces. The engine power plant is a G6 engine, or is it a G5 engine? Either way, it's basically 2 BF109Gs taped together, which results in an aircraft that weighs 3 times more than an empty BF109G when empty, and only twice the horsepower. So that means you're going to have an aircraft that should handle like a brick. Unfortunately, the aircraft never flew, because when Germany was doing their muhaha evil science in their little airfield, forcing Polish workers to build this thing, Britain came in and was like just rolling thunder that shit out of that, and the entire factory was leveled like fucking Dresden. Everything burning, ash everywhere, like not even recoverable. And Germany was at this point in 1943, like Hitler, I'm assuming, was having a smoke outside the bike shed. It was like, you know, those destroyer programs. Fuck them for the mouse. And then they made the mouse. Because, let's be honest, Hitler was fucking horrible when it came to his whole planning. He wanted to make the Me-262 a fucking dive bomber. He was a fucking Downs patient. Long story short, this thing never flew. And this is a problem in of itself. Because vehicles that we have in-game that never flew always have fucking bullshit flight models. I'm looking at you, the R2Y2, or the Ho-229, which, let's be honest, when the Death Dorito was first added to the game, it was fucking bullshit. That thing could turn on a dime, it was fucking fast, it was made of fucking wood, and if you got the Havoc belts, you could literally wipe out all the ground targets in about 5 minutes. It's like the Su-6, but going like fucking 400, 500 miles an hour. It was broken. And this is more of the same, and I thought we were getting out of this, because it was fucking bullshit. I hate dealing with that cancer. And people are like, oh, but Nathan, just submit a fucking bug report or a, you know, recommendation for a fix. It's like, you can't do that with these vehicles because there's no fucking data. Gaijin requires you to have 2 fucking references when you post something in the change log. You want to have something changed. And even when you do post the recommended references, they still fucking bullshit you. 2 great examples of this are the M60's mantlet and the Mouse's mantlet. The Mouse's mantlet pisses me off the most because they pulled a turret that never existed out of their ass to say, oh, it's got weaker armor. When it's like they only made 1 fucking mouse turret. Well, they made 1 mouse turret and they made 2 mouse hulls. The mouse turret in game should have 240mm of front armor on the front of the mantlet. But because Gaijin refused to do so, it was like, oh yeah, it means every ballistic cap shell on the 122 and even the 85mm ballistic cap shell on the Object 906 can pen you frontally from basically like 500 meters. It's bullshit. So, all you had to do to get that data is go to Kubinka and use a tape measure. There are pictures online where you can see the measurement of the actual example tank. And it triggers me. Because this is vehicles that have existing documentation we know were real. Whereas with this vehicle, it's semi-historical. We know they sort of might have started production, but even the references counteract each other. Some say it was just a specification. So, I don't know what the fuck to think of this. The reason this is a problem is if this flight model is either extremely godlike and they half-ass it and just give it the F-82 flight model, that's it, or they do the opposite and it handles like absolute garbage and is nigh unplayable, because you've got a BF109 here that weighs 3 times as much as a BF109 for just over, you know, double the horsepower, we're going to have a problem. Because either scenario, you cannot fix said vehicle. And this is where the bad precedent sets in. You cannot submit a bug report to fix this vehicle, even if it's broken. And what happens when more vehicles of this niche come in? Like, for example, with the Type 90, you can't actually do a bug report for its armor. You can't do a bug report for its gun because it's classified. You can't get access to it. It's just that what if. So these vehicles aren't a fair representation of what they would have been historically. Even in the same time, the modern vehicles aren't a fair representation because said vehicles have a completely made up model, DM and flight model. So this means that it's whatever Gaijin wants it to be. And that's not good for the game. Because what happens when they add an extremely powerful vehicle and it's just absolutely fucking broken? It just rolls across the battlefield, sodomizing the shit out of thousands of helpless villagers. What are you going to do? Can you submit a bug report? No, it'll be immediately rejected because you don't have a reference. That's where the problem comes in. Because all it takes is Gaijin to do this with a vehicle that's classified, or a paper sort of specification vehicle, like maybe the E50, the E75, anything like that. Some of these really random Russian what-ifs where it's like, you know, the KV-5, where it's literally just a rolling box of death that if it existed in real life, it would probably get stuck in knee-high mud and probably explode when the engine tried to do a small hill. Looking at you, the whole reproduction, which, fuck you, that tank is just... The fucking reverse speed on that, tap reverse Q 3 times and then go backwards 22 miles an hour. That's a bug, but it'll never get fixed because you can't report it as a bug because there's no stats for the vehicle. Long story short, it just means that when Gaijin does this, you will be unable to submit a bug report if the vehicle is either ridiculously overpowered or ridiculously broken in a form of it being balked. That's my problem with this. Because according to them, a precedent for a vehicle that never flew to be added to the game is so they could make 30 fucking bucks. And that is fucking conniving and bullshit. This is Nathan giving you your daily dose of fucking War Thunder, I don't know, wokeness. Oh god, I fucking said woke. Jesus Christ. I'm never saying that again. This is Nathan signing out. Leave your comments and all that down below. Keep on gaming. I'll see you on the battlefield.